Hi, welcome to CEO Chatz. I'm Steve LaValle, Co-CEO and co-founder of Wonderbots. We are an intelligent automation boutique firm and been in business for many years. Today, I have with me the CEO or President, David, of the Burnie Group. Are you CEO or President? Maybe you could introduce yourself and your company.
Sure. I call myself founder and principal. I worked at McKinsey before starting Burnie Group, and so we use that nomenclature. But I founded Burnie Group in 2011. Our focus is about bringing together management consulting practices with technology. Automation is a very big focus for us. We've been working in the automation space since 2011, and we work across all the platforms like you do. And our focus is very much on the strategic side of automation. What's the right strategy, automation strategy for companies? How do we build out their centers of excellence? And working very much with the senior executives to think about their automation plan.
So it's funny, Burnie, we have very similar businesses. We were just chatting before we got started here that similar, but I don't view us really as competitors because I mean this is such a large market. It's interesting. You came out of McKinsey. We came out of the Big Four. So we both sort of have this pedigree of big consultancy. Yet you and we sort of pivoted to our own thing in a smaller boutique model. So what was it that drove? I'll tell about Wonderbots. But what drove you to start the Burnie Group and kind of leaving the umbrella of a big strategic consulting firm?
So for me, it was partly entrepreneurial spirit. I really enjoy building something and seeing it grow. But I just felt being at a big firm, you couldn't deliver as much value as it could independently. So as an example, just innovation, we don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops in order to pursue new technologies and figure out what's best out there. We can really investigate and understand what's best for our clients. Second would be experience. We're typically, and I think you would recognize this, Steve, like pretty focused in a few key industries and a few key problems that we solve. And we do those over and over again. Unlike some of the big firms where you go work on one industry, then you're switching to another. Like we're very much focused. And third is around expertise. This is a real core focus for us. All of our leadership, our team members, this is what we do. We're not working on one project, like going off and doing a strategy project after that. It's very much a core focus for us, and you get a lot of leadership time. So back when I was in the big firms, you'd see the partners, they'd sell a project and then they'd disappear. Whereas here, our leaders are involved on a day-to-day basis. What's it like at Wonderbots?
I mean, it's funny. It's a lot of the same background here because for us, I was a very large Big Four firm, and when we were trying to serve our clients, there were lots of people who had opinions on things that didn't really understand the technologies and what we were trying to do, or were pushing us to solve for things other than value to the client. And so my co-founder, the other founder, Bobby Esch, he and I worked together. We actually had started the practice for this company here in North America, and we realized that if we really want to deliver the truly outstanding client service, then we would be better off doing it in an entrepreneurial mindset. So we could do a lot of the same things that you're talking about in terms of the innovation and the focus and the specialization. And we started with a handful of people. We started in 2017, so that's about 6 years ago for us. And we had a handful of folks, and now we are hundreds of people. We have a commercial center in India. We have a very large practice here in the U.S., and we're actually in process of coming together with another company that will double our size from a revenue perspective. So, it's really excited about that. But it's always been like you around the client value, the value of the client. We call it our no matter what. So like if we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it no matter what. And like you, sometimes we have to help clients see that what they may think is the right thing to do maybe isn't always the best way to go about doing something. So we try to give that straight talk conversation with them to help them understand our experiences And we have great clients, like you have great clients, and always have room for more great clients. But same as you,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But let me ask you a question. It's kind of pivot. It's interesting to see that how each of our two firms deal with these same kind of things. But right now we're sort of in the midst of a recession, like a global recession. I know different people argue whether technically in a recession or not in a recession. And
I think we're there.
I think we're there. I think we're all kind of in the mindset of if we're not, it sort of feels that way. What have you found as you look at your clients from a strategic perspective or prioritization perspective? Has your business have clients kind of wanted to do more? Have they changed their focus of what they were doing? Like, what have you seen clients sort of re-optimize and reprioritize in this market?
It's been really interesting looking at the past year because initially clients were very much focused on growth, and then as we've hit this recessionary discussion period anyway, a lot of our clients are just putting the brakes on and saying, and I'm seeing a lot of indecision. People are deciding not to invest. They're saying, well, maybe we're just going to hold off on that initiative that we were going to do next quarter. And I would say the more innovative clients are thinking, wow, this is a great opportunity for us. Like, a lot of our competitors are pulling back, slowing down. We can really double down and really take this time to improve the way that we work, improve our operations, improve the way that we service our clients and our customers. And we'll come out of this much stronger, because it really feels like this recession is going to be a smaller one or a later one. So, just like back in the pandemic, where there was a 6-month period and then things were, sort of going gangbusters, I expect that soon hopefully things will turn around quickly. And if you've been resting on your laurels, you're going to find that those innovative competitors will have done a lot of work to get 1 or 2 steps ahead.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. And one of the things that because I think it varies by company to company, as you're saying. Like, some people some organizations are bold and some are a little maybe less bold. I don't necessarily say timid, but I just did. But the point, when you think about intelligent automation, is it's a very quick ROI on things when it's done well. So when I talk to the leadership, I sort of say, look, now may not be the time to do some crazy experiments. But if there are things in your business that that if we can put some automation behind, that can give you some relief for, so that your staff can deal with, the higher pressing items that we can automate. The bolder ones are like, yeah, let's kind of figure out what that is. Some of the other ones I think we're seeing too, like there's some that's sort of a 6-month drag now, right? Where they've sort of like, the stuff that they may have done in October or November, they're only now just starting to think about, what am I going to do? And they're doing that in the context of the budget that they have set up for this year. And then we are seeing a lot of cautiousness among a segment of the market. Also sort of seeing a bit of a pivot here around how things are getting funded. So, traditionally, or not, maybe not, I guess traditionally, is like the corporate entity would fund a lot of these programs and would to the benefit of budget holders in various groups in the organization. And so in combination of some of this cautiousness, we're also seeing a bit of federation in terms of how things get funded and who's getting to make the decision of what gets done. So are you starting to see that also where even if you have a central COE that's kind of helping maintain quality, but they're now needing to go to the actual budget holders on the business side in order to get them to agree to fund? Are you sort of seeing something similar as that, or is it a little different in your client?
Well, what I'm seeing is the business leaders who are just so critical in driving automation, because you need that business leader on board in addition to the center of excellence. they're making some decisions now where they're saying, okay, well, if we're in a spot where we don't want to invest in these projects which we had on the table, the least we can do is invest in ourselves. There's some no regret moves where we can take a ton of dollars out of off the table, increase capacity. And like, Steve, when you're working with us, you can self-fund these. Typically, if you think about a 12-month period, you can pay for the cost of the project and actually be getting money back within 12 months, within the year. So there's some real no regret moves. And that's where I see business leaders step up and saying, going talking to the COE and saying, I want to do these automation initiatives now. Some of the other priorities that we had are being delayed. So let's really work on improving our business and improving how we perform.
Okay. So by the way, I wrote down no regret moves. I'm going to steal that line. I love that. I love that discussion because it really is it's very descriptive on this. And when you have the business people who are in charge of running parts of operations, whether it's an accounting operation or the core operation of the firm, if they say they need something to the degree that they're willing to pay for it out of their budgets, because if you've got a 6-month payback period, for instance, you could actually build something now, get it in place by June. If you're on a fiscal calendar, you're sort of net even, for the year. And otherwise you can, we like you could do creative financing too. We can move the payments around, something like that. But it's very easy for you to justify, so that when that senior leadership tries to put a freeze on things, you still have budget that you can spend, assuming you're spending it wisely, and you kind of go make the case for that. Again, that kind of speaks to some of the bolder ones, particularly on the no regret moves, to kind of steal your line on
and
that.
One of the challenges is that the business units are now finding that some of the centers of excellence, they're just at capacity and they can't get this work done. So I think that's a perfect reason to reach out to companies like Wonderbot's Burnie Group, say, hey, we just don't have the capacity internally. We've got these 2 or 3 initiatives where they're just going to pay off very quickly. Can you come in and help us? And that's one of the things we're really good at, is working collaboratively with the COE to make sure that the work that we're doing fits into the program, works well, integrates. And so that can be a perfect opportunity to go out for external support.
Yeah, which is sort of in the mindset of supplementing the capacity. We have seen, but I'm wondering if you have seen, so sometimes the business people, so like you might have a central COE that, is supporting an enterprise, and then maybe they're supporting many functions out of that enterprise. We also see, like, if you had a business leader that wanted it, build their own COE, essentially. And then sometimes they become the corporate de facto, sometimes they don't. And I kind of call those like the reluctant COE owners, is that they want the outcome, and the only way to get the outcome was they had to do these extra steps. And those people, I think, particularly as the market continues to evolve, and the rest of the company picks up intelligent automation, they don't necessarily want to be the enterprise group. They want to do their thing. So it's sort of an interesting combination of the ultimate enterprise COE and then with these other COEs. Because I think if you're a reluctant leader, then you could certainly hire other people and just kind of like, you just want it, just go get it, right? But when you're working with the enterprise, sometimes there are other constraints on what you can do. Some of our clients is like 3 or 4 COEs running around. And,
and what it turns into, it's like a bit of a Frankenstein monster where you've got all these mini automation teams. They're all doing work that isn't integrated. It's not coordinated. Sometimes they'll be building solutions which duplicate each other. And then next thing you know, and when you're in the initial stages of automation, that's fine. If you've got 5 robots, 10 robots, but now some of our clients, they're in the hundreds and hundreds of robots. And now they're looking at it going, we are hiring, we've got 10, 15 people whose jobs 100% all day long, all they do is they manage our robots. They're making sure that they're optimized, they're deployed against the right activities, and it's starting to become in itself very inefficient. And so that's actually one of the areas that we've seen a lot of interest is how do we coordinate the automation better? How do we get a really good central visibility into, what are the bots that are working, which ones aren't, how much capacity do we have? How do we make sure we're deploying them properly? And so that is another area where we're seeing a lot of interest and growth amongst our clients to really manage the automation program more effectively.
It's kind of that hybrid, which parts do you want to have centralized, like the automation library and the quality, versus which ones do you want to let the federated people kind of build their own. And that's a trade-off that we're seeing more and more. Are you seeing a lot of multi-platform environments now where they have like Blue Prism and UiPath or AA and a mishmash of other platforms?
Yeah, we are, and I think that there are good reasons to do that, and maybe not so good reasons. So some of the reasons or rationale, there are different strengths of the different platforms, and depending on what you want to do, one might be better suited than another. There's also, from a procurement perspective, some value in having some competing platforms that, we're not getting the best contract, we can shift some of our volume over here. So there are some valuable reasons to be multi-platform. But clearly there are some challenges that can arise from that and some issues if you're not managing it effectively. So it's important to have really good governance and really good controls over that.
And where do you think that multi-platform governance should sit? Is that an IT function? Is it a finance function? Is it a procurement function? I guess, or like.
Yeah, I think it's up to procurement to manage some of the process. It shouldn't sit with them, though. I think that IT typically, I find, has the best knowledge about what they're trying to get out of a platform. Finance needs to be involved to ensure that we're hitting our numbers, but and there needs to be a close partnership with operations. But I have found that IT has the ability to really understand what the platforms do, where they're best suited. And as long as they have a really good linkage to operations so that they can collaborate and work together, then that can work really well.
Yeah. I think with our clients, I would say we do have the multi-platforms, and generally speaking, someone did it for a reason, like they needed some functionality that wasn't available. When I look at the progression of the platforms, so they're always like one-upping each other. So if it doesn't have something that you need, just wait a couple of months, and then it'll probably show up at some point. But still, there's validity to having a multi-platform strategy, and it's always a question of, it's like mine is the UiPath one, but yours is the Blue Prism one, and we're not going to talk to each other. That's just a lost opportunity, I think, at the company, because you want to be able to write, because they work with each other too. Like Blue Prism can work alongside a UiPath bot, or a bot or whatever bot that you have.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of interest emerging, Steve, is around AI. Of course, OpenAI and generational AI is a hot topic everywhere. And now people are coming back and saying, hey, how does this impact our automation program? Be interested. Have you seen good use cases, and how are you thinking about generational AI?
I think it's really exciting. And, of course, you'd have to be living under a rock to not know about ChatGPT at this point, and these large language models and what they can do. And the way I like to describe it, and others probably describe it the same way, is that up until now, up to even a year or so ago, we would tell clients it's not ready for prime time just yet. And selectively, yes, document understanding or whatever, yeah, okay, use AI for machine learning and the components of that there. But it's only recently now that you see this is now sort of ready for prime time. And the way I would sort of describe it is that up until now, the history of computers in the world is that people have had to adapt to use the computers, right? You've had to either learn complex programming languages, even the drop and drag, you had to learn the techniques around that. And it was always on the two-way relationship, it was always the individuals that had to do it. But now, finally, for the first time, really for real, and it'll get better, but for now, let's just say the early days of the first time for real, is that the computer or the AI models can actually understand the human talking in the natural language of the human. So we don't have to talk natural language of the computer anymore, which is the forms and the bits and the code. We can talk in human, English or whatever language you use, your natural language, and the computer will understand what you're saying. Now, that may sound, okay, so what? But that is a huge pivot of the paradigm here. And as we now start to see the use cases that can emerge when a person can talk in natural language to a computer and the computer can understand what they're saying, and it's only going to get better from where it is today, is we kind of see this is as big a change as .com was 25 years ago, and except there's no .com. Maybe it's .ai now. I don't know what it's going to be, right? But that's the level of change and it's a wave, and none of us really know what it is. We're setting up on our site. So on the Wonderbot site, we have a lot of content because we have a content-rich site. So we said we want to take all of our content from Wonderbots, load it into a chat vehicle so that you could ask about intelligent automation in natural language on our site, which is cool about that is that it also addresses what the individual companies can have. Because if someone is going to try to ask about a policy in your company or something like that, you don't want it searching the web. You need to be able to isolate that content and have control over that content. And that's what we're going to do on the Wonderbot site. Is this can only answer questions with the information that's on the Wonderbot site, and just to show that we can. And I think that's just the beginning of this kind of thing. The real issue is going to be securing the data for access for the robots, for the AI, not the robots, pardon me. But that's kind of how we say. What do you see?
Well, there are two use cases which I find incredibly exciting. So first, if you think about the work that we do at Wonderbot Burnie Group, we develop automations, and the innovation of generational AI to take your code and throw it in and have the generational AI create sort of look at the code, think about, okay, what's broken, what can be fixed. I've heard some really impressive stories where you can take what used to take 3-4 days to code and change that, convert that to 3-4 hours. So I think that just in how we do our work, I think there's some really interesting possibilities this opens up, both in terms of the resources you're going to need to develop automations and also the pace and the speed at which you can move at. So that's one really interesting area for me. And the other, we do a lot of work in contact center, and the application of generational AI into chatbots and into the contact center itself, I think will be really interesting, where you can have you can be listening to a conversation, and then along with the agent, the AI can be interpreting what the customer is saying and already be pulling up the answer and providing it to the agent to respond back. And so it can be working with agents and of course chatbots themselves and get better answers and more realistic answers. So I think those are two use cases that I'm particularly excited about.
I couldn't agree more. On the call center one, actually, I saw that solution. I did not to date myself. 10 or 12 years ago, I saw a demo of that assist the agent solution, because if you break down the call, there's a certain amount of time to authenticate, a certain amount of time to diagnose, and then a certain amount of time to process, and you have to handle the after call work. So if you had an AI tool listening in and making suggestions, you can kind of do a lot of compression. But it didn't work years ago because it required a knowledge management system that was so well formed that it could, in fact, predict what the people are talking about and make suggestions. But now with AI, with a chat GPT or that type of tool, the computer will build its own knowledge base based upon either what it sees or your policies, or your SOPs, or whatever documents you give it. And I think I love that idea years ago. We just couldn't get it to work. But I think now we're going to see that working. Probably, maybe it'll be the Burnie Group. We'll be the first ones to push that out.
There's still a ways to go, but it is very exciting. And that's where a lot of clients, of course, are very interested as well. It sort of reminds me a bit back to the days when blockchain was becoming very popular and everyone wanted to learn about it. And now our clients are in the same about generational AI.
So let me pivot the conversation. So we've been talking a lot about the technologies and how to change things. If you're successful, let's take a profile here. If you've got a company that maybe has got 5 or 10 worth of bots running, I don't know how many automations would be running, probably several in that case. And then they want to scale. If I came to the Burnie Group and said, this is what I want to do, well, where would you take me? Would you take me down process discovery? Would you take me down governance? Like, where would you, or would you, it's like, I should have already had this stuff figured out by now. Where would the Burnie Group take me with that question?
So it's a bit of a combination of all of them because, like we discussed before, you can come up with great automations across your business, but if you're not doing it in a coordinated way, then it leads to trouble down the road. So usually when we're working with clients, we start with going in, understanding your business and identifying what are the biggest areas for opportunity. Then we would build a roadmap to say, all right, based on what those opportunities are, how do we go about implementing? And it can be, is your appetite sort of long and skinny, or do you want to be really focused and get a whole bunch of assistance in to just knock everything off very quickly? And then also important is the governance around that. Are we building out a center of excellence? Are we going to outsource that capability, which clients can do to a company like Wonderbots or Burnie Group? And how are we going to make sure that once we put these in place, we can actually manage them? Because one of the biggest fears I'm getting from business owners now is, oh my gosh, like once they go and play, am I basically being held ransom by these bots? Like if we change something, is it going to blow everything up? And so now I just have 10 more issues to deal with. So putting really good governance and process in place is important so that you can scale and you don't end up on the back end with a huge maintenance headaches and a whole bunch of cost related to the automation program you have in place.
I think that's well said. I mean, if I think about the people, they're not looking for technical debt; they're looking for solutions to their business problems, and you have to deal with a certain amount of technical enablement in order to get it to work. I think that was very well said. I think we would probably say a lot of the same thing. The only thing that we do that we like to do with the clients is just pick something that's very valuable. And while we're doing some of the stuff that you're doing, you probably do the same thing, you just didn't mention it. We try to find things that are very valuable, like the wow factor, so that we can get it in place and help drive the excitement for the clients.
Change management's number one, right? Like that's the biggest barrier I have found is change management within an organization. They get one pilot done and then it just doesn't go anywhere after that.
We find too, like you have to have the plan post-pilot done almost before the pilot gets done, because we can build the pilots very quickly. So if like 6 weeks later we're looking at each other, or 8 weeks later, now what? Well, then we didn't really do it right? Because it should have been ready for phase B, which has already been kind of sketched out. But I think it's a big part of our roles is I think to help the clients with the been there, done that. Between us, you and our team, we've probably seen just about everything that somebody could do, both right or, not so right, to kind of be that trusted advisor, that kind of, at least as I said earlier, like we'll tell you straight what we think and then, support you in what you think you need to do, for your business.
Yeah. Steve, have you seen any good, tools in terms of managing the infrastructure, managing your bots, making sure that everything is working properly? You've seen any good tools that help with that?
There are a couple of different, so sort of the manager, the COE management tools is what you're talking about, right? And there's a whole bunch of different tools on the market that perform a variety of those functions. So you have the ones that are great at canvassing and collecting ideas for what to automate, and that are also the storage parts for the different artifacts during the life cycle. And then there are other tools that can help you with the benefits realization tracking. Sometimes it's the same tool, sometimes it's a different tool. And then you have the tools I like to call the orchestrator of orchestrators, right? So like because if you're running, say, UiPath and Blue Prism or AA, in the same environment, you have to go in. Each one of them has its own orchestrator or control room type function that has to be managed independently, so that if something goes wrong, someone has to be watching that application to know that it's gone wrong. Sometimes they'll send out alerts, but generally speaking, you have to be paying attention to it. So there's this other category of tools that sort of have started to emerge now that are the orchestrator of orchestrators, as I like to call them. I don't know if there's a better name for it or not, but we have one called Aria Cloud that is part of one that we sell. Of course, there's RPA Supervisor. They just renamed themselves to something else. I forget what the new name for RPA. Okay, they just rebranded. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. They're a partner of ours, so I can't remember the name. And then there's another one called Turbotica also has some of these same features, and that's been around for a couple of years now too, and has a few clients. But there isn't an abundance of these tools right now. There's only like a handful of them, and they're all, because they're all sort of in early stages, are brilliant at different things. So they're adequate at some and brilliant at others. So you have to decide what you really need to get out of the tools.
Yeah, and they can drive a lot of value too, right? Just like you want to manage your workforce and think about your overall, optimization of your workforce. You can optimize your robots, right? And you think about the utilization of those, and you can get your often we'll go in, we'll find that total overall utilization of bots is 20 to 30% because you're always managing for those peaks. So if you can be managing that more effectively, there's a lot of cost savings just in managing your robot team more effectively.
Yeah, I think that is true. That is one of the problems in the industry. Besides the peak, is the unutilized robots that people have, because you're buying capacity. A lot of times when you buy, you don't really know. You have plans for what you're going to use, but you don't really know what you're going to use. But the discounts are there to get you to make a bigger commitment, so that you end up making this multi-year commitment to scale. And if something happens along the way or priority shift, some of the companies we've seen that. That's why we try to help them, as you do, to consume that extra capacity with value, with quick automations. When they come up, because once you make those commits, you can't get out of them. It's yours for 3 or 4.
Yeah, and our clients often, they want to take that extra capacity, not reduce the cost, but actually reinvest in additional automations, which I think is the right answer.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So David, I know it's been great chatting with you. I know
it's been fun.
This has been awesome to talk to another like-minded person out in the marketplace, kind of dealing with the same challenges that we deal with our clients. So we wish the best of luck to Burnie Group, continued success. When you succeed, it helps all of us, because it just grows. It grows the stories, grows the market, and we all win.
Yeah, and just the benefit of mid-sized firms like ours is just so valuable compared to working with some of the bigger firms that I think that there's just so much opportunity for success for all of us to work together and collaborate.
Yeah, it's awesome. Anyway, so thanks very much. Thanks everyone for this installment of CEO Chatz, and we'll look for the next one. Take care.
Thanks, Steve.